What's up, you guys? It's Jay Carnes and welcome back to another one of my YouTube videos. I will be sketching in this brand new sketchbook that I found in one of my drawers. I wanted to draw an animal. As you can tell, I'm going to draw a toucan, but the reason is because I had previously drawn this rooster, did with tombos and such, and I loved it, but I kind of wish that I didn't do it in a single sheet. I wish I did it in a book. I did not know that I had a brand new one in one of my drawers. So here I am. I've also never documented everything I've done in a sketchbook before. Usually I just draw on my own, and if I like something specifically, I'll do a bigger project on it. But I've never documented anything. This is 135 pounds, it's technically 140, of a Moleskine watercolor album. The reason they call it an album is because it opens up flat. You don't have to worry about the cover kind of keeping your pages bent. So I get full use of the page. That's what I'm trying to say. I love them. They also come with the hardcover and the strap and everything. Like I said, it's a fancy schmancy book. You don't need this kind of sketchbook to do fantastic work or just draw in general. There are much cheaper sketchbooks out there. Some with a lot more pages, others with even better pages, actually. So this is just my preference. Easier for me to store, easier for me to preserve drawings without having the covers bend and stuff like that. But anyway, in this sketchbook, like I said, I'm gonna be drawing animals, and I will obviously be talking about my little process and what materials I'm using and all that stuff. But I also wanted to add a little twist to it. I learned a long time ago, and it kind of just stuck with me, that no matter what it is, as useless and small as it is, but as or as big as it is, like it could be anything small, like, oh, I didn't know that leaf was that color, or I didn't know how to ride a bike, or whatever. Like, you learn something new every single day, and I figured, why not learn something new about the animal that I'm drawing and then mention in the video, and then that way you guys might learn something new. So yeah, that's the twist. You will be finding random facts in here about the animal I'm drawing. First things first, the material I'm using. I already told you about the sketchbook, but I will also be using a Micron pen. They have, I want to say, maybe 10 or 12 different sizes. The size I love using is the 005. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I love these pens. They're archival, so they don't bleed when you use any water-based markers or watercolor itself, which is fantastic. Like I said, I use the 005. It's not the smallest. I think they have one smaller, it's like a 003. And then they have much bigger tips, like a 10 or 12 or 8 and so on. But yeah, they're awesome. I love using them to sketch with. I go straight in with the pen. I don't use pencil. I don't want the opportunity to erase. I want to kind of just jump right in. I learned a very long time ago from teachers and other artists and such that you need to be very confident in your lines. Erasing also damages the paper. I'm not a fan of how messy pencils get. So I've always just sketched with pens. This is a very, very good way to build up confidence in your lines, like I said, and then a very good way to learn to work with the mistakes that you make, because you are bound to make mistakes when you're working straight in with pens. Your proportions are not always going to be right. Your lines are always going to be off. Something's going to be too thin, too thick, and so on. So it forces you to work with it. And in the future, if you do this enough, I guarantee you will be better and better and better the more you do it. Here's a little secret as to why I like using the 005. When you're working in, whether it's sketching or drawing or anything, you're going to be working in line weight, meaning the way you hold the pen, pencil, or whatever material you're using, the amount of pressure you put down is going to determine the thickness of the line that you put. In this case, with a pen, the lighter I hold the pen, the thinner the line, the lighter the line. The harder I hold the pen, the darker and the thicker I can make the line. So when I use a 005, because it's already really thin, when I hold it really light, just to get like a light sketch in, you get such a faint line compared to the others. For example, near the neck, there's a really light line to the left of it compared to the darker one where I decided, okay, this is where the neck is going to be. That one's much darker, so it kind of fades away, the light line. That's the little secret behind the me using the 005. And then, for example, right here, I want to make it darker, so I go over it a bunch and I press down harder. See how these lines are so much darker compared to the first initial lines that I drew in? That's the secret. And then it's also a technique that you will learn the more you draw, where it's just line weight. It's pressure. It's like when you're working digital, there's the whole pen pressure sensitivity thing on the tablet itself. The harder you hold down, the thicker. The lighter, the lighter. But yeah, I drawn the toucan. The reason I picked toucan is because I love drawing them. I draw them a lot. Actually, I've drawn them a lot over the years. They're one of those go-to birds where I just, if I feel like drawing a bird, they probably end up being one of the top choices. They're odd looking fellows. They have such a huge bill, and then their body it always just looks so much smaller compared to it. I was very curious. Here's where the facts come in the video. Their bills are huge, and it's got that like curved down type of tip where it looks sharp, but apparently it's not sharp. This is where I learned the first fact that I didn't know. What is sharp is their tongue. I didn't know that the tongue was really long, which I should have realized. The bill is huge, which means they need a long tongue to fit in there. But it's also sharp. It has apparently really like little tiny spikes all over it that they use to grip and help them swallow their food. I thought that was kind of creepy, but at the same time, like, it's interesting. Like, doesn't that feel uncomfortable in there? It's like really like, it's like having needles in your mouth. And then yeah, like, so the other thing was that since the bills are so big, I also thought that it seems heavy, right? And then at the same time, I thought maybe it looks heavy for us, for example, because it's big for their body, but for them, they were kind of born with it, so it must feel normal to them. And then that's when I found out the other fact, that it's actually surprisingly light, even though it's like 4 times the size of their head. I didn't get any measurements, but yeah, it's 4 times the size of their head, and it's light, but because it's still big and their body's smaller, that means that they have shorter wings. So the other interesting fact I found out is that they don't fly long distances. I didn't know that. They actually hop tree to tree. Now it makes sense when I saw it in videos. If they need to cover long distances or anything longer than they normally do, what they do is that, they get as high as possible and they hop tree to tree. And then if they need to cover long distance, they glide. They jump off as high as they can, open up their wings, and they just kind of just glide till they get there. I thought that was very interesting, pretty cool. I didn't know that. Last fact that I wrote down here is that they aren't your typical birds where they sing or they chirp or they do any like cutesy bird stuff. They actually are deep down inside frogs. they croak. I didn't know that they croaked. That was weird. I actually had to search it up, and it was hilarious. I looked up a video, and they literally sound like a frog. But yeah, those are the little interesting facts. Now onto the drawing. I speaking about the bill and the face and all that stuff, I wanted to get a close up, so you guys are getting a second drawing here. I love the details, like I mentioned, that I can get with a 005. These really crisp, thin lines are, it just makes it so much more interesting. I'm not even close to finishing this close up, and I like it 10 times better than the far version that I drew on the left here. But yeah, same process. Line weight, go over it multiple times. The harder I press, the darker I get, the lighter, and so on. The other thing you got to keep in mind, the closer you bunch up your lines, the darker it's gonna get. If you're not, if you're not crazy good with your line weight, like if you're one of those people who puts down too much pressure with a pen, another trick to get around that is to spread out the lines. So when you put your lines real close up together, like for example right here, it's all the same line weight, but I'm putting them really, really close compared to down here where I separate them. You see how it looks so much lighter, and the closer I get, the darker it gets. You can work that way as well. Separate your lines and put down less so that it looks lighter, or like it doesn't look as full, and then put them much darker and or in this case much closer and much tighter so that it looks fuller. You could also just go over it multiple times. You see, for example, right here, I go over the same line multiple times just to darken it up and make it really, really sharp so that it takes away from the lighter line that's underneath. In the face, for example, you see how there's like 6 or 7 lines where it's like bam, bam, bam. There's like space in between compared to the ones that I'm doing right now. Same thing. The darker I want it to be, the more lines, and the closer I make them, the lighter, the less lines. See how it kind of looks like there's like a highlight above its head? Yeah, it's all the same weight. I'm pushing down on the pen big time so I can get really dark lines, but I'm separating them, like I said. It's going to take practice. If this isn't something that you normally do, it's going to take a lot of practice. The other thing when you're working this close is that you will see your mistakes a lot more. It's going to be a lot more noticeable. But again, super cool way to really learn to push yourself and become more confident in your lines. The other thing that I should probably mention, just in case, this is a time-lapse video, so this is obviously sped up, but between the both of these drawings, it took me, I want to say, maybe 2 hours. So it does take time. You don't see how long I take to put down these lines, and then the dark area, like the really dark area and the feathers, that took a bit. It wasn't like a boom 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 and I'm done. Yes, I could have gotten it there much faster if I used a thicker pen, but yeah, with the 005 it takes a while because I got a layer. But it takes time. Take your time, enjoy the material, have fun with it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I have almost 100 videos on my channel working with all kinds of materials and projects. I have affiliate links in the description below with all my favorite materials. Check those out if you're interested in certain materials. If you have any question on them, you can also message me, comment, or anything. But yeah, stay tuned for any future animal videos. If you want to see one specifically, leave me a comment. I appreciate you guys again. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you.